because I measure my life in months now, and I have to because I have an incurable disease. I just posted some stuff on the website, and I've got some strange comments. And one guy just posted me, and he said, "Well, if you're not in remission, how can you prove that your carnivore diet has helped you?" And I'm thinking, I'm not trying to prove anything. I just have a set of protocols that have made me very healthy, although I'm not in remission. And all of this combination of all these things is supporting the most important thing in my body, and that is my immune system.
You are listening to The Foundation of Wellness, a refreshing take on diet and lifestyle. Join me, Marisa Moon, as we tackle modern health with innovative and ancient principles. I'm a certified Primal Health Coach and intermittent fasting instructor at marisamoon.com. Hey, podcast listeners, it's Marisa Moon, your host, and thanks for being here. I really am glad to be back. The podcast is like intermittent right now. I'm trying to keep up with everything, but I wanted you to know I haven't disappeared. We're here to stay. And this guest today is probably going to blow your mind. I'm going to have him on twice because he's just a wealth of information. And today in particular, I absolutely had to have him on because he has this riveting cancer story. And there's so many shocking variables that had something to do with his success with this cancer. And you're going to learn all about his unconventional cancer journey since he was diagnosed with this incurable bone marrow cancer in 2018 and was only given 3 to 6 months to live. And, you know, he's like in his 70s, so it was a really, really big deal. And Dr. Al is his name. Dr. Al rejected all chemotherapy, and he's thriving today. And he's here to share his absolutely unconventional treatment route. And he explains also partway through that he did decide to do some conventional treatments with his more alternative ideas. Now, Dr. Danenberg, who goes by Dr. Al, is a periodontist. And that means he's a gum disease specialist. And he was in private practice in that profession for 44 years. And in September 2018, he retired from the active practice of treating individual patients. And just to give you an idea of how serious this guy is about health and nutrition, I want you to check out his academic and professional achievements. Dr. Al received advanced training in evolutionary nutrition from Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health, as well as the Center for Mind-Body Medicine. In June 2014, he received the Certified Functional Medicine Practitioner designation, as well as the certification as a Certified Primal Health Coach. Like me, that's how I know Dr. Al. And in 2015, he was appointed to the faculty of the College of Integrative Medicine and created the college's Integrative Periodontal Teaching Module. Then in April 2017, Dr. Al earned the credential of ADAPT trained health professional from Kresser Institute. Now, in July 2017, Elektra Press released his book, Crazy Good Living, which is based on ancestral nutrition and lifestyle. And in April 2020, Dr. Al was appointed to the chair of the Periodontal Committee for the International Academy of Biological Dentistry and Medicine. He also created a certification course for that same academy, which earns graduates a certificate in biological nutritional dental profession. And that's the first certification of its kind. So it's kind of a big deal. Now, on July 17, 2020, Dr. Al was appointed as a member of the Scientific Advisory Board for Immunity at Daivam Wellness Center in India. And in August 2020, he published 2 miniature eBooks on Kindle, which you can get at the Amazon Kindle store. And they're called Better Belly Blueprint and Is Your Gut Killing You? And he mentions them a bit in both of the interviews. Now, go ahead and find Dr. Al on his website because his blog is incredible and it shares his whole journey. drdanenberg.com is his website, and that's spelled DR for doctor, and Danenberg is spelled Danenberg. So I know this is a long episode, but don't get intimidated. Just bookmark this episode and listen to it in its entirety. A little bit here, a little bit there, and it's just going to blow your mind from beginning to end, the things that he is sharing with us. And towards the end, Dr. Al gives his words of wisdom to anyone with a life-threatening diagnosis. He said, I don't recommend that you listen to just one doctor. Before you make the decision, do your research. Go to pubmed.gov, that's PUBMED.gov, so you can see research from the entire world, seeing what's been done in other places other than where you live. And this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This no way will substitute for medical advice you've been given, and the treatments discussed in this episode are not widely accepted as part of our medical standard of care in the United States. So be your own health advocate and never stop searching for answers. I hope you enjoy, and please share if you do. Hey, Dr. Al, you're finally on my show. I'm so excited.
You are so sweet to invite me, and I'm excited. Thank you.
You know, ever since I saw you on Habits to Thrive last year, talking about the oral microbiome, I was like, I got to have him on my show. And honestly, the podcast has been a big undertaking for me. You know, you produce a lot of content, and it takes a lot of time. And doing the podcast has been like an incredible undertaking, and I just can't keep up with all the things I want to do. And you're finally here, so it makes me really happy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And one of the biggest reasons I had to absolutely get you on is because of your riveting cancer story. And today you're going to share with us some pretty shocking variables that had to do with some of your success.
Absolutely.
Wow. Why don't you start by sharing with the audience and with me how you found out you had cancer in the first place and what that was like for you?
Okay, so this is a long story, but I'll try to cut it short. I guess we need to start back where I thought I was a healthy guy. So maybe when I was I'm 73 years old. So when I was 66 years old, I learned about primal nutrition for the first time in my life and changed my entire life around because of that. And at that time, actually, I was recovering from a stroke that I had at the age of 59, not realizing I was not healthy, and I was put on 7 medications for the rest of my life. I tried to figure out how to eat and live a lifestyle that was healthier because my doctors had no idea. And I went to organizations that the average person would think about, like the American Cancer Society, the American Diabetic Association, or whatever they're called, the American Heart Association, basically to figure out what they said to do to live a healthy lifestyle and eat a healthy way, go into a healthy way of living. I never really got the right answers, but I tried to follow them from the age of 59 to 66. Interestingly, at the age of 66, I learned of a course at the College Center for Yoga and Health of nutrition for the healthcare professional. It was a 5-day intensive course, and I thought this was going to really hone in my information, and I really was getting the right stuff at that moment. So I took the course, and it blew me away because I learned that everything I was doing was wrong. And I learned primal nutrition. And I got involved with primal nutrition and primal lifestyle at that tender age of 66. Interestingly, from that point to 2 years after that, I was able to remove every one of the 7 medications. I lost over 35 pounds, not because I was on a diet, but I started eating healthy. As you know, and your hormones rebalance, and all of a sudden, the junky fat goes away.
Yeah.
So within 2 years, I was a new person. I thought I was the poster boy at that age of 68 now for a primal lifestyle. And I introduced all these concepts with my patient treatment because I'm a periodontist and I'm treating gum disease, and everything that is happening in the body relates to the mouth and back and forth. So I was getting really quite good success. And I guess a few people learned who I was and what I did, and I started to write and I started to lecture. And let's fast forward to 2018 when I was 71, and I was asked to speak at the Paleo FX meeting, and I was traveling from Charleston, South Carolina to Austin, Texas. And while I'm traveling, I go through a big airport, Atlanta Airport, and if I have plenty of time between flights, I like to walk the concourses. And it's great exercise, and I put my bag on my shoulder, and I walk, never have a problem. But this time, I was walking, and the bag started to get really tiring and uncomfortable with my shoulder. My shoulder really started to hurt, and I thought I pulled something. So I went to the meeting, I did my talk, I went home, and the soreness just didn't go away. And then eventually it sort of spread to my back. And then it spread to my chest. And I'm kind of pig-headed, so I didn't do anything about it. And this is in April of 2018 until maybe August of 2018. So in August of 2018, I go to my doctor, who I've seen for over 35 years, so he knows me very well. And I said, Billy, I've got this pain. It doesn't go away. I must have torn something, and it doesn't want to heal. So he looks at it, he plays and pokes and whatever, and he said, yeah, you're sore. And I said, yeah, I know I'm sore. What's going on? He said, I don't know. Let's do some blood work. And we did some blood work. And everything came back normal, everything, which is interesting, except that he did do a high sensitivity C-reactive protein, and he said, this is high, and normally it's very, very low for me. So there's some kind of systemic inflammation going on. Don't know what it is. Something is not right. And he orders an MRI. The MRI comes back. He calls me. He says, do you want to come into the office? You want me to talk to your phone? I said, how bad could it be? Talk to me over the phone. And he says, and he gets very serious, and he says, I think you have either lymphoma, leukemia, or multiple myeloma. Now, wait a minute. I am 71 years old. I'm thinking I'm the healthiest guy on the earth at this point in my life. I have plenty of energy. I just have soreness in my shoulder that has gotten back to my back and now to my chest. What's going on? So he brings in an oncologist. And,
so right now, this is just sitting with you, like you had this conversation on the phone.
T-bone. I've been T-boned by a Mack truck. I mean, here I am thinking I've got a bad torn something in my shoulder. Fix it. And that's not what it is at all.
Wow.
And the MRI shows that I have 2 vertebral compression fractures, several cracked ribs, and a hairline fracture in my pelvis.
Wow. That's a lot of fractures.
Yeah. And this is what's causing my pain in my shoulder and chest. It's the broken ribs and the vertebral compression fractures. And so we do what's called a PET scan, which is a type of big X-ray, tip of the head, the tip of the toes, and it looks for cancer cells. I get an injection of radioactive glucose, and glucose cells, and the cancer cells suck it up, and it lights up on the X-ray. And that X-ray shows lots of cancer cells. And not only does it show a lot of cancer cells, it shows holes all over my bone structure, just like a person with severe osteoporosis. Now, my disease, which is a big name called IgA kappa light chain multiple myeloma, it is a bone marrow disease, and it causes lesions in the bone like osteoporosis. So my bones are becoming extremely weak, and I had no idea. Well, I didn't know I was sick, and all the chemistries didn't show any abnormalities because they were the general chemistries and blood work that everybody gets. I would have thought I'd have lots of calcium in my serum because of the calcium being pulled out of the bones. My calcium was normal. So my oncologist, my wife, and 2 adult children are in the room, and he goes over everything. And he's very serious, wonderful guy, and he's my oncologist today. And he looks at me and gives me my diagnosis and then tells me I have 3 to 6 months to live.
What?
If I don't do anything. Now, this is in September 2018.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, the other thing is my disease is incurable. So what it means is, and we have this conversation in the room, is that he wants me to start chemotherapy the next day, and maybe radiation to take care of the pain in my chest because I can't breathe well, and maybe even stem cell therapy later, but he thought that wasn't going to work for me. And I said, well, wait a minute. We're talking about an incurable disease. Why am I doing chemotherapy? And he said, well, it's going to put you in remission and you'll do well for a while. But I said, well, what does that mean? He said, well, the disease is going to come back. And each time it comes back, we'll need different chemotherapy that is stronger because the previous chemotherapy wouldn't work anymore. And I said, well, what's going to happen with my quality of life? And of course, we're getting very serious now. And he says, it's going to go downhill. And I'm telling him with my wife and kids, without any denial, I said, the only thing that is important to me is my quality of life. I mean, I don't care if I drop dead tomorrow. I just want to be healthier feeling, energetic feeling, and then just drop dead. Mark Sisson, his thing, grow old and drop dead. So I'm thinking, why would I do chemotherapy that's going to make my quality of life even worse? Because chemotherapy destroys your immune system completely, and then you have to rebuild it artificially. And who knows how you're going to do with that? And then there are all kinds of side effects of chemotherapy they don't even talk about that I can relate to you later on that is even worse than the cancer. So I'm thinking, this is not what I want to do. And I make the decision right then and there. And my wife,
on the spot, you're in the office?
Absolutely. I said, I'm not going to do chemo, but I need to take some time to do some research to figure out what alternative cancer therapies I can get involved with to support my immune system, not destroy it with archaic chemicals. So I do that, and I start to create an alternative type of plan with the help of some integrative physicians. And I've tweaked it many times since then, and that's September 2018 until today. And I did it extremely well. And I'll tell you how I break it down and where I am today with it. But I did extremely well. My chemistry stayed relatively stable, didn't get much worse, didn't get much better, certainly never got in remission. And I had to have radiation on my chest because the pain was so severe I couldn't breathe from the broken ribs and the cancer right there. So it doesn't treat the cancer, it just treats the lesion that's affecting the lungs. So I did that. And then let's fast forward to August 2019, about a year later. Now, I only was given 3 to 6 months to live. I'm living beyond my prognosis. So I'm very happy. And my quality of life is great. I mean, I have little things going on, but basically my quality of life is great. And that's all I wanted. We even developed a bucket list so that I'm thinking I'm going to die soon. So I wanted to do things with my wife and my family and my adult children and my grandkids because I could be gone in 3 to 6 months. So we did a lot of fun things that I wanted to do. And we did them all. And I'm still alive. The funny thing is, when you don't die, when you are expected to die, everybody that is really caring about you thinks, oh my God, you're not dead yet. I wasted all this time and you're still alive. Anyhow, so. Wait,
I have a question. How did you do all these things if you had such fragile bones?
Well, I was careful. I was careful. And I'll tell you about my fragile bones in a minute. Because let's fast forward to August of 2019. I know that my bones are fragile. I can't be challenged with doing things. But I'm in my bathroom, flossing and brushing my teeth, which I know how to do. And I'm standing on the floor, of course, with my 2 feet. After I floss my teeth, I twist to throw my dental floss into the trash can on my left. So I twist maybe 90 degrees. When I twist, my right femur snaps in half.
Oh my gosh.
I collapse to the floor, break 2 more ribs, and split my right humerus in half. And the right side of my body is really crushed, and I'm writhing in pain, screaming. My wife is in the other room. She comes running in. You can imagine the emotion, and I'm ready to die. Now, you got to realize that this is the end. So, I'm sorry. This never happened.
Please don't be sorry. It sounds like a nightmare.
So, of course, my wife calls EMS. And EMS comes and they negotiate me to get out of the room. You gotta understand, I'm in a bathroom, literally crunched, and we can't get EMS to get the gurney to get me lifted out of the bathroom. So they do manipulate me. They get me to the hospital. My right femur is broken in half. It's ready to pierce my femoral artery. So they have to fix my right femur. And when they fix the right femur, they repair the artery so I don't bleed to death. But I reject other treatment because you need to understand, now I have gotten to the point where I've extended my life beyond my prognosis, and my quality of life could never be good anymore. So I'm ready to die. I have given up, and they put me in hospice. I am catheterized. Can you imagine how not only debilitated, but demeaning it is to be catheterized, have to use a bedpan, literally laying in bed, you can't really move. You have to be fed. You are on narcotics and you're groggy. It is miserable, but I am in hospice to die. Now, here's something very interesting. This is September, the first week of September 2019. There's a hurricane. It's amazing how things work, right? There's a hurricane coming to Charleston, where I live, and the hospice hospital, is ordered to evacuate because the storm is only moving at 1 or 2 miles an hour, but it has 187 mile an hour winds. So they don't know where to send me. My wife, who's a nurse, gets a hospital bed in the house, and they actually transfer me to my house. I'm still under hospice. The power goes out for about 12 hours or so. Hospital beds are electric, so they don't move anymore. I am literally in bed. The power is out. There's no air conditioning. It's over 90 degrees and sticky and humid, and life is absolutely miserable. And I am ready and want to die. So the next day comes, the power goes on, and my wife says, listen, and she's fantastic. She creates tough love for me, and she says, look, you are not a victim, you are a survivor. Your unconventional cancer protocols brought you to this point very successfully until you had this accident in the bathroom, and it destroyed you. But come on, let's change things. Let's get you back on the unconventional cancer protocols. Let's get a physical therapist in, and let's help you, and maybe we can get better. And all that happens, and I get better.
It's like she saved your life. It's so cool.
So I rally. So the physical therapist comes in. He gets me out of bed. Eventually, the catheter comes out. I had a catheter for 30 days. I get the catheter out. I'm walking with a walker in the house, and eventually start walking outside. And the next month, which is October, I get to go see my oncologist. And the oncologist, who actually is still the oncologist that I started with, the oncologist is amazed I'm alive. So he finds out that there is a new drug that is an immunotherapy drug that has been approved by the FDA that is not chemotherapy, but it is a type of what's called a monoclonal antibody that's derived from humans that supports the immune system and helps kill my malignant plasma cells specifically, not destroys anything else. So I get started on that with my other cancer protocols, and I'm responding. And at the end of May, fast forward to May now, 2020, he wants to see how the cancer cells are improving in my body. So we have this PET scan, May 8th, 2020, and it's in the morning. He calls me in the evening, and he says to me, make sure you get your wife on speakerphone because I want to read the report from the radiologist. And he reads it, and it says no active cancer cells throughout the entire skeletal body. And I said, George, wait a minute, read that again. Read that again. Well, this is amazing. So I'm kind of elevated, levitating off the floor. My wife is crying, and it's great. Now, the reality is, you have to come back to earth. The reality is the PET scan is not completely accurate. It only shows moderate to large clumps of cancer cells. It doesn't show some things that are floating around. The fact is I am not in remission. I am not cured, but this is the first time I had this kind of successful PET scan, and I'm feeling fantastic. So today, which is whenever it is, I am in mid-September, walking about a mile a day. I do modified push-ups and squats. Mark Sisson would be very proud of me. And I feel fantastic. I have plenty of energy. Do I look like a guy that is dying? And I am, because I measure my life in months now. And I have to, because I have an incurable disease. I just posted some stuff on the website, and I've got some strange comments. And one guy just posted me, and he said, well, if you're not in remission, how can you prove that your carnivore diet has helped you? And I'm thinking, I'm not trying to prove anything. I just have a set of protocols that have made me very healthy, although I'm not in remission. And all of this combination of all these things is supporting the most important thing in my body, and that is my immune system. So I'm doing quite well.
What is missing? Oh, it's awesome. Thank you for taking us there. What is the difference? Like, how come you can't say it's in remission because the PET scan isn't?
Yes. So the cancer cells seem to be, in the ones that are identifiable on a PET scan are not visible anymore. But there must be plasma cells that are malignant, still producing a variety of dysfunctional antibodies. And I have dysfunctional IgA antibodies. And my specific test of these IgA antibodies is elevated. It's less elevated than it was 6 months ago, but it's still elevated. So they cannot determine, the oncologists cannot determine that I'm in remission because of this particular assay of the malignant or dysfunctional antibodies.
And how frequently were you getting numbers like that? Like
I get
every 6 months?
That test I get every 2 months.
Okay.
Now, when every month that I go into the cancer clinic, I get a normal CBC and I get a normal blood chemistry, which is amazingly good. I mean, all these chemistries are fantastic. My hemoglobin is great. My blood cells are great. All the other chemistries, alkaline phosphatase, which normally would be out of the roof if my bone is breaking down, is normal. No calcium in my serum, that is abnormal. All of the parameters are great. I'm very happy.
Yeah.
I do other things, I make sure that my diet is extremely nutritious and anti-inflammatory, and I do basically a carnivore diet. I maintain an extremely healthy gut, and that's one of the things that I'm very much into. So I do that. I take some herbal extracts to support my immune system. In addition, I use pulse electromagnetic field therapy to heal my cell membranes and improve my mitochondria. All of these things, I can't tell you one is better than the other. All of these things are part of it. And of course, I'm not trying to discount conventional oncology. I am taking this new immunotherapy drug too. However, that is not the only thing that's making me healthy. As a matter of fact, I can tell you that people that are elected to take immunotherapy, not everybody can have immunotherapy, but if you are a good candidate for immunotherapy, this is interesting, only 20 to 30% of those cancer patients are successful. And the reason is, according to articles I've read in oncology journals in the last couple years, Their gut microbiome is out of whack. They're dysbiotic. Very interesting relationship that oncologists are now understanding, how the gut microbiome is critical for the success of their cancer immunotherapy, which is amazing because most conventional medicine doesn't accept the concepts of healthy gut microbiome. But yet. And it's happening. And so I am thinking what I am doing is making my immunotherapy as well as my cellular structure and everything else peak in efficiency, because my goal, like I said, is to have a very robust immune system. Theoretically, I am at extreme risk for infection because theoretically my immune system should be shot, because my disease, my cancer is a malignancy of the immune system, of the blood cells, of specifically the plasma cells. So this is quite interesting. I think I have more of a healthy immune system than most healthy people have. And my oncologist believes that he has no other patient that has the success that I have had, even though I've not ever done chemotherapy.
Oh my gosh. And you're in your 70s.
I'm 73. Yeah. An old guy.
Oh, incredible stuff. And I'm sure listeners probably have a million questions. Like, just in a nutshell, what is the type of cancer you have? You said it's of the blood cells. Is that the same as the blood? Go ahead.
The name is IgA kappa light chain multiple myeloma. So the more general term is multiple myeloma, and it is a disease of the plasma cells of the bone marrow.
Okay.
And a cancer of the plasma cell. And I do think I know how I got it.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm a geeky kind of guy. We talked about that earlier. So I am not satisfied with knowing that I have cancer and I'm trying to get healthy. I need to dig in to figure out why do I have cancer, because I've already been told by a lot of people out there that says, obviously your healthy diet that you started at the age of 66 didn't do anything because you got cancer at the age of 71. Well, it doesn't work that way. I had cancer way before the age of 66. No one knew it. And here's what I learned. I did some research and I found a study that was published maybe around 2012. And it was looking at a cohort, a group of male dentists, the age of, I think it was 62 to 75, compared to the male population of that age group throughout the country. And it turns out that those male dentists in that age group had a significantly higher incidence and prevalence of cancer, specifically multiple myeloma, than other males of the same age in the general population. So the article never said why. It just was the observational research. So I started to think, well, what was happening in my 4 years of dental school and 2 years of graduate school, which are 6 continuous years in this professional environment, that could have predisposed me to myeloma? 2 things were occurring. One, which has been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, is that low-dose ionizing radiation will cause plasma cells to become malignant. Low-dose ionizing radiation are dental x-rays.
Oh my gosh.
In my dental clinic, where I was in school, kind of a unique modern dental school, we had 4 dental students that worked around one another in a little module, and we all shared one x-ray head, and there were 120 students in the class. So there were a lot of x-ray units all in the clinic. And I am thinking, you can't smell it or feel it or hear it when it runs, except there's a little red light that blinks on and off. So we didn't have, or I didn't have, badges and protective equipment as much as we should have, I guess. And I don't know how many times I walked through the clinic and the x-ray machines were running and I was exposed, and it accumulates. It's not a one-time thing. It doesn't go away. So I'm thinking this could have caused one plasma cell, just one, of all the millions I have, one plasma cell in my body to mutate, become malignant, not die on its own, and repopulate. The other thing is we placed what's called amalgam fillings, which are mercury fillings in teeth all the time. And mercury is highly toxic, and we played with free mercury in our hands like kids play with Play-Doh today. And so we played with this wonderful silvery, watery looking but metallic substance in our hands when we were mixing it to make an amalgam. And then when we had excess mercury, we threw it on the floor. And those little beads ran in all over the floor, and then eventually they disappeared. Who knew what happened? Well, it evaporated. So the mercury toxicity was all throughout the dental school. And every dental school in those days, and this is in the very early 70s, late 1960s, early 70s, all those dental schools were probably the most toxic buildings in the country. No one knew it. So the toxicity of the free mercury vape and the low-dose ionizing radiation probably stimulated one of my plasma cells to become malignant. I have no idea how many other dental students.
I know, that's what I was wondering. Have you talked to your school, your classmates? Anybody still kicking?
Most of them are dead. But, I mean, so I don't know that they've had lymphoma or other malignancies and never, ever related it to their experience in dental school, because that was 40 plus years down the road. So you need to understand, and everybody needs to understand, disease doesn't start the day before you manifest it. It starts not just months or years, decades before. These people that are eating burgers, fries, and a Coke, and they're 12 or 13 years old, and they're the healthiest people, they're getting sick, and they don't know it until they're in their 40s. And the sad thing is the knowledge base is there to change that, but no one makes a change until there's an emotional relationship that they have to make that change in their life. Knowledge doesn't make a change, but an emotional tie, if you were, let's say you were to get married, that emotional relationship may make you motivated to do something for yourself. Or you got a new job, that emotional relationship makes you do something better. Or you have a child, or you have a grandchild, you want to stay healthy. You have a life-threatening disease. All of a sudden, you are treated for your heart attack or whatever. You know that you need now to get proactive.
Yeah.
Sadly, not many people become proactive when they're healthy or they think they're healthy.
It's so true. I hope many of my listeners are actually people who are now proactive, because it's kind of a trend right now. You've seen it. It's like people are actually into self-optimization or really seeing, what they can do to prevent the fate of maybe their loved ones or someone else they've seen suffer in their life, which is also...
We're in a very strange environment with COVID. And people are having some severe reactions to this virus. Many of them are having serious reactions because their immune system is failing. And it's not that they have a failing immune system. It's just that it's so dysfunctional to start with. When they got the COVID, it can't do what it's supposed to do to literally gobble up this virus and get rid of it from your body. We need a strong immune system.
And immunity is such a huge, it's everything in your story. And our listeners might be wondering, you just glazed past the word carnivore, and it's going to be definitely in the title of this episode. So the carnivore diet, I did one interview on that, and it was, also very on the surface. But this is kind of crazy that you turned to a carnivore diet to fight cancer when everything out there is like green juice and plant-based cancer fighting remedies. Yeah. So tell us how you even got there.
What I will say is, first, the standard American diet is the worst diet that you can eat, and that's what 95% of the population eats. So any other diet is better than the standard American diet. So if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, or you're doing Mediterranean or Gershon or all kinds of maybe exotic type of ways of eating, you're probably healthier than eating a standard American diet. That being said, there are diets, and then there are diets. There are ways of eating. So I was originally on a paleo type diet. When I was diagnosed with cancer, I went from a paleo diet to a paleo autoimmune diet. And then on January 1st, 2020, I switched to a carnivore diet because of some research. And here's some interesting research that actually turned my way of thinking totally around. I did some research specifically at a clinic, from a clinic in Budapest, Hungary, called the Paleomedicina Clinic. It is a medical clinic. It's been in existence since 2011. As of now, they've treated over 5,000 patients. They treat specifically severe chronic diseases, autoimmune diseases, and cancers. And they treat it with their method of an animal-based diet strictly, and they call it the Paleolithic ketogenic diet. And that is their term for their diet. It's a very strict carnivore diet with a fat to protein ratio measured in grams of 2:1. So it's a moderate protein, high fat, zero plant diet, and no supplements and no prescribed medications.
Whoa, slow down a second here. That's a lot. Okay, he just said moderate protein, high fat, zero plants. Is that what you said? Zero carbs?
Zero plants.
Zero plants. And when you say zero plants, you're talking about not even like a little dried oregano on top?
Only Himalayan salt for spices. And so I'll tell you why in a moment. And they do report their medical case history, medical case reports, individual case reports, off and on, in English, so you can read them in English, and they're compelling, very impressive. They're not double-blind, but they are human studies, and they now have treated over 5,000 people. Mm-hmm. So then they have the science behind that, and it's quite exciting. And I will tell you this, and that's what really turned me on. Not just the individual studies, and I'll share one that was their most recent reported case report of a man, 52-year-old man with glioblastoma, which is highly deadly. Wow. So I'll give you that in a second. But basically, here's the science. Animals eat all these plants that you want to eat. All these phytonutrients that are truly important are chewed and digested by the animals that eat them. These animals have a digestive system that does many things, especially removes the anti-nutrients that are toxic. And these anti-nutrients are basically the phytates, the lectins, and the oxalates. Now, we as humans eat these foods, and we can cook them and reduce these things, but we don't have the digestive enzymes to reduce or remove or detoxify all of the phytates, lectins, and oxalates. But these animals do. And those nutrients that are critical for health are absorbed in their muscle meats, but even more importantly in their muscle fat, their muscle collagenous parts, and in their organs. When you eat an animal that is pastured and raised properly, not on grain, but grass, not in a conventional herd, but out there roaming on pasture, those animals are healthy and their nutrients are extremely biologically available to us.
Wow.
So when we eat these animals, and I want to emphasize, it's not the muscle meat that's critical. It's the organs, the fat, and the collagenous material, but also the meat. When you eat these, all those vitamins and minerals are absorbed in your body. And we have a digestive system that is designed to digest animal products. We have a very acid stomach. The pH is 1 to 1.2. That is very acidic. And the reason we have evolved to have this acidic stomach is that it will kill most of the microbes that are rotting meat. It turns out, if you look at our primal ancestors and do nitrogen testing, you will find that the nitrogen remnants are the nitrogen from animal products and not the protein from plants for the most part. We are herbivores. We can eat plants, but we are well designed to eat animals. And here's why. The acid is one. The second is we have a small intestine that is very long. That is where the animal products are basically digested. We have a very short colon and very small cecum because that is where the plant material is digested. Now, herbivores, animals that only eat plants, have a very short small intestine and a very long colon because they're digesting all these plant materials appropriately. So our guts, still, we can eat plants, but we are designed to eat more animal products.
You know what's funny about that, Dr. L, is there's still a whole vegan world out there on the internet that claims that we have the GI tract for plants. And it kind of drives me nuts because I'm completely on board with what you just explained, and I believe that to be true. How could there be such a completely different story being told about an organ that we know is a certain size or shape or...
I don't know. I mean, we are herbivores and we can eat plants. So yes, we can digest plants. There's not a problem with digesting plants. It's just that we prefer the animal products. And the fact that anti-nutrients can be damaging to our body makes sense if we can get the nutrients from another source. And that's the animals. And we can get everything we need, including vitamin C. Actually, the vitamin C that is more beneficial and bioavailable to us is the vitamin C in animal liver, as opposed to the vitamin C in plants. So this is the story that was compelling. And here are some, at least this is the most recent medical report from the Paleomedicina Clinic that I was impressed by. 52-year-old man has glioblastoma. He is treated conventionally with radiation, chemotherapy, and surgery. He goes into remission for a month or two, and the disease comes back in a severe state, and he rejects chemotherapy and traditional medicine, and he goes to the Paleomedicina Clinic. Paleomedicina Clinic puts him on an animal-based diet, no prescriptions, no supplements, and they follow him. At the end of 38 months, he's still doing well. At the end of 38 months, they write their case report. And this individual is not in remission, but his disease has stopped progressing. He has no symptoms anymore, and he is functioning normally. Now, this is a glioblastoma, 38 months. Generally, he would have been dead long before that. So is it proof positive? No. But they do have 5,000 patients. Some of them treat very successfully, probably, obviously. Some of them are not successful. Medicine isn't 100%. But the fact is that this type of diet allows the body to do what it needs to do to repair itself. And it gets the nutrients that it needs, and it doesn't get damaged from irritants like splinters. I think in terms of irritants like anti-nutrients, that's a splinter in your finger. If you have a splinter in your finger, no matter how healthy you are, the skin cannot heal. Once you take that splinter out, the skin can heal. If you take that splinter and continue to stab it into your finger, the wound will open up. So what we do, we eat foods that are healthy, and then we eat foods that are irritating. They have anti-nutrients. They are acting like splinters. They're damaging the gut microbiome. They're damaging the epithelial barrier of the gut constantly. And we keep doing this, and our body says to us, you can't do this because my DNA does not have the knowledge to create the enzymes to protect you from this stuff. So you can't eat the irritants, but you can eat everything else. But what do? We still eat the irritants, so we have a problem. Fortunately, our gut membrane, our epithelial barrier, is one of the most reparative tissues in the body. And if you were terrible in your diet and everything else today, and you cleaned up your entire environment and your diet tomorrow, your epithelial barrier in 1 week will be a new barrier. It really is all grown over, except we keep cheating and we keep doing things to our guts that never allows it to heal.
I want to tell the listeners what you really mean, because they've probably heard of the term leaky gut right now. And when you talk about really the gut, the epithelial layer, you're talking about that fine, it's like a single cell layer that separates the gut from the bloodstream, or?
Correct. So when things go into your mouth and go out the other end, that is a tube. And that tube, even though you think it's inside your body, it's not. That tube is completely external to your body. Nothing gets into your body unless it is absorbed through that little lining called the epithelial barrier, that gut lining, and then goes into the bloodstream, and then gets into the liver, and it filters out and does what it has to do with the rest of the body. But if that lining is not intact and it doesn't allow just micronutrients to go in, it literally creates holes and larger particles and other substances that are too big to go in, but all of a sudden now can seep into the bloodstream. Your immune system gets quite excited and it tries to fight it off because it's a foreign object now. And that is why your immune system overreacts. You get systemic inflammation, which is very unhealthy to the rest of your body. And that is the precursor, that is the origination of all chronic disease, including gum disease and dental decay. It all starts in the gut, because when the gut is unhealthy and holes in the gut develop, a leaky gut, and the immune system becomes compromised, it affects every mucous membrane in your body and your skin and your eyes and everything in your body. And now you are in a compromised state, and other bacteria that never would cause a problem start to become a problem. And when you're eating an unhealthy diet, and it feeds the bad bacteria that are starting to grow, it becomes a vicious cycle. And everything can break down based on your genetic predisposition. So if a person genetically has a weaker mouth, they may have gum disease. If another person has genetically weaker skin, they may get eczema. Another person has genetic problems with their myelin sheaths, they may get multiple sclerosis or Alzheimer's, and a host of other chronic and autoimmune diseases, all based on the damage in the gut, the compromised immune system, and your genetic predisposition.
Wow. And how did you know, or how could you be confident in such a strict carnivore keto diet if, I guess, why can't you just have a little bit of plants in that? Why?
Okay, so you can. So you can. So
I'm plugging in my laptop. It's going to die, but keep talking.
Oh, go ahead. Don't let your laptop die. We're on a roll here.
10%. I know. Go ahead. Okay. I'm ready.
So I am in a different state than most people. I am in a state that I could die next month. And 2 years ago, I could have died within a few months. And I am in a compromised situation. I want to do the maximum I can do. So when I did the research and I saw the science behind a strict carnivore diet, my thought is, I am a person of N equals 1. There's no control group. I am my only study. And I know that I could die if I didn't do anything. So I'm going to do this because it makes sense to me. No one else had to prove it to me. No one else had to convince me. I convinced myself. So the question is, can you have plants? Well, actually, the Paleomedicina clinic is not so strict when the disease is not so severe or if you start to get better. And they will allow a minimum of 70% animal-based foods and a maximum of 30% plants that are what they call paleo-type plants. Now, I changed that definition, and I wouldn't call it paleo plants. I would call it plants that are low in phytates, oxalates, and lectins. So yes, and I've created a whole diet concept that I call the Better Belly Blueprint, which utilizes all the information in addition to supporting the gut microbiome. Now, what they don't do in Paleomedicina Clinic is actively support the gut microbiome. A healthy diet will support the gut microbiome, but they're not replenishing and rebuilding and restoring the gut microbiome like I want to do. So that is part of my protocol. And if you want, I can go into the details of the protocol. But yes, you can have plants up to 30% of volume. So if you look at a plate of food and you think of it a big circle, 70% or more should be animal-based. And that is animal meat, yes, but organs, fat, and collagenous material. Absolutely. You have to have the collagen proteins offsetting the muscle proteins. There are different proteins, and you can't just eat muscle meat and not collagen, or you'll have an unhealthy diet. So if a person talks about a carnivore diet and they're having steak every night and steak and eggs and that's it, that's not a healthy diet, in my opinion. It needs to have the organs, it needs to have the collagen and the fat. The fat is critical, and the fat needs to be high, and the protein grams moderate.
Wow. So the Better Belly Blueprint is this protocol you've put together based on your own experience, and you make that available to other people where?
Absolutely. Actually, it's on Amazon. It's a mini-ebook.
Oh, how do you have time for all? You blow my mind.
It's a mini-ebook. I have another one, too. It's called Is Your Gut Killing You? It talks about the details of the gut microbiome and how it affects the entire organ system of the body. But the Better Belly Blueprint is a very short ebook. It's downloadable on a Kindle app. It's not a hard copy book. And it's only 28 or 30 pages long. But it goes into the details of the concept and the science behind it, and it has cited peer-reviewed articles to support what I'm talking about. And it lists the fruits and vegetables and spices that are low in oxalates. Interestingly, two of the spices that you probably think are extremely healthy, everybody thinks are extremely healthy, are extremely high in oxalates. You want to venture the guess of which two they are?
I'm nervous. I don't know if I want to know.
Yeah, you don't want to know. One is turmeric.
Oh, wow.
And the other is cinnamon. These are two very popular spices that I used to love. Yeah, and the third, it'll kill you. It's chocolate.
I eat so much dark chocolate.
So I have given up all of those.
Oxalates, you said, because they're high in oxalates?
The oxalate, yeah. Because oxalates form crystals and it damages the gut barrier, the gut epithelial barrier, creates basically a leaky gut. But it also is a factor in kidney stones. A lot of high oxalates can cause kidney stones, calcium oxalate. So,
whoa. Okay, there's a lot going on here. It's like we learn something is healthy, and then somebody else tells us it's not, and it's like turmeric's going to solve every problem that you ever had in your whole life, and now we see maybe it can be damaging to the gut barrier, and it's like pretty wild.
Here is my point. I believe we have a DNA code, a DNA blueprint. We've evolved for at least 160,000 years. The human species, 2.5 million years. But modern humans, Homo sapiens, 160,000 years. We have this DNA. It basically is our architectural blueprint. And interestingly, a paper was published several months ago that showed that 99.9% of my DNA are the same as your DNA, and everybody's human DNA is the same. The thing that makes you, you, and me is just 0.1%. That blows me away. I'm not sure it's true, but I read it in this medical paper. So our DNA blueprint says this. Look at a pendulum. On one extreme, it says this. You need to do certain things or you will die. You must drink liquid water. You must breathe air. You must eat nutrient foods for me to survive. We know that. Are we going to stop breathing or eating or drinking? No, we do that. On the other extreme, our DNA blueprint says, but I am not capable of doing certain things, and I can't tolerate poisons that you put in your body. And the poisons are blank, blank, blank. So don't do that. And what do? We put poisons in our body every day. So it doesn't make sense. Yes, the food industry has created a wonderful sense of desire and need. That soft, smelly, fantastic bread that is just baking with sweet, luscious frosting and all these other foods that are tempting because they're palatable, we think we need, but our bodies really cannot tolerate. But we still do it. So the question is, how proactive do you want to be? How healthy do you want to be? How much do you have a death wish or a survival wish or thriving wish? If you want to be healthy, you need to be proactive and not put the irritants, the splinters, into your body continuously that challenges your body. We're very resilient. We're still going to be alive. The sad thing is 60% of the U.S. population has a chronic disease. 70% of all deaths in the United States is a result of a chronic disease, which never occurred in our primal ancestors and does not occur in primal societies that are living remotely today. And 72% of the U.S. population is either overweight or obese. Now, which group do you want to be with? And I elect, because I am where I am, I elect to be in a group that believes in a robust immune system, and I'm going to do everything that I can. And I got to tell you, I am not unhappy eating a carnivore diet. I am not hungry. I have no cravings. I do not snack because I'm not hungry. And I will tell you, my wife is not on the same page as me.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is your family eating carnivore?
No, but she's got, I do the cooking and she eats what I eat. But no, but still, I am a happy guy. I am full of energy. And although I have limitations, there is nothing that I want or need in life that makes me satisfied. And I don't need to have a croissant, and I don't need to have a piece of pizza, even though I used to love these things. But I have no cravings for those anymore. The answer is you do what you want to do, and your body will tolerate quite a bit. But do you want to get to the point where your body's overloaded with the toxic substances that you've been putting in for decades, and now you start to degenerate, and all of a sudden you have high blood pressure, and all of a sudden your chemistries are not as healthy as they should be, and maybe you're developing all kinds of things that are going on with your skin, and other debilitating diseases start to pop up, and you have, but basically is debilitating chronic disease like everybody else you know. But do you want to be like everybody else you know? And I got to tell you, the level of comfort declines rapidly. And I've been there, and I've been in hospice, and I know what it is like to be absolutely miserable. And I'm not going to allow that to happen. And I'm going to die eventually, and I have no problem with that. But I just want to drop dead, and I don't want to slowly become weaker and weaker and weaker and sicker and sicker. So I'm not going to put things in my body that I know it can't tolerate or doesn't want.
Do you think that I have two questions I really want to ask you. I'm going to ask them both at the same time, and you can answer them.
Yep.
Do you think that everyone, like, if you had your dream world, do you think everyone should be on a carnivore diet? And number two, do you think you would go on a carnivore diet if it wasn't the same type of cancer that you had?
Great question. I certainly went on a paleo diet, which is a very healthy diet. It just included fruits and vegetables and seeds and nuts. So the seeds and nuts are extremely high in oxalates. I've cut them out completely. But the fruits and vegetables, I now will have maybe 10% of the volume of my plate in some fruits or vegetables that, number one, are low in phytates, oxalates, and lectins, and number two, are not high in carbohydrates because I want to stay in this level that I am. I actually cycle out of my carnivore diet or my modified carnivore diet once a week, and actually will have 100 to 150 grams of carbs to change my ketosis. I will certainly lower my fat levels and raise my carbohydrate level on that day with certain fruits or vegetables. And I will obviously not be in ketosis, and my insulin will become stimulated. It will be reparative and anabolic for my body for that day. And then I'll go back to my carnivore-ish diet and do what I've been doing. And I think it's very healthy. Do I think everybody should be that way? Well, everybody was that way for almost 160,000 years, except modern man today. When I say today, in the last several hundred years, maybe 1,000 years. So we've been eating refined foods, never gotten terribly sick yet until the last 50 years. And all you have to do is look at our societies today.
But didn't our ancient ancestors consume over 100 different types of plants throughout the year?
Yeah, I'm sure that they did. And they also consumed meat more than plants when they could. But they cycled back and forth. And we are omnivores. I have no problem with that. Mm-hmm. And of course, there are elements that they didn't have that we have. We have constant emotional stress. We have poor exercise or over-exercise. People doing CrossFit hours a day, every day a week. They go into oxidative stress, rhabdomyolysis, all kinds of other damaging things. We have poor sleep habits. We are chemically damaged with all the stuff that is in our environment and our foods. You and I are looking through dirty electromagnetic fields. There is a damaging effect on our cellular structure and our microbiome because of this. I have a solution to that, by the way. But all of this needs to be understood. And for an intelligent person, and I'm assuming I'm intelligent, hopefully a little bit, you need to understand fight your battles and understand what you can deal with and what you can't deal with. The toxic substances that I have that I have the ability to remove from my body and my environment, I'll do it. If it's too difficult to do, I don't worry about it. It's a battle I choose not to fight. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And do you ever think back if it was a different type of cancer? Like, I mean, I know you can't say, but is that why you were compelled to, find this place in Hungary and to try such an extreme change to your diet?
When you go from paleo autoimmune to carnivore, it's not as extreme as you think.
Okay.
Yes, you are eliminating the plant. So that is extreme, I guess. But you're still, you're basically fat adapted already. If you're doing that. So it's not like you're having keto flu or things like that. You're not having the withdrawal. I had no withdrawal from carnivore. There were a couple diarrhea sessions maybe for a few days. Other than that, no real gastric pain, no aches and pains and, the types of things that you get if you were carbohydrate addicted and you had to withdraw from that. When I started paleo at the age of 66 from my standard American diet, that was a rough time. That was so much more difficult than going from paleo autoimmune to carnivore. Not that difficult at all. And it's so easy to shop.
Yeah, it is.
And because the fat is so satiating, I eat one meal a day, maybe one meal and a smaller meal a day. And that's it. And there's no snacking. And it's not because I don't want to snack. It's because I have no desire to snack. There's no craving. Now I can smell fresh bread being baked and appreciate that fragrance and aroma because I find it pleasing. But it doesn't cause me to salivate and want to have a bite of that bagel. It doesn't happen anymore to me.
What do you think about green juice? It's so funny. I keep thinking of these people I know, and I'm like, oh my God, they think green juice is the answer to everything.
I know. Juicing, number one, removes all the fiber. Now, there's an interesting thing about fiber and a carnivore diet, and I'll get into that if you want for a second in a moment. But green juice removes all the fiber, and it all has a lot of sugar because depending on what you're...
No fruit, green juice, all organic.
Okay, so just the green leafy stuff. And of course, you're going to have Swiss chard and you're going to have spinach in it. And of course, Swiss chard and the spinach are the two most highly oxalate leafy greens that you can think of. Very unhealthy. Beets, also very high in oxalates. So is that good or bad? I think it's terrible. Does it cause you problems? Probably not right away, not next year, maybe not in a decade.
That's what a lot of people are fighting their cancer with. That's why
I know. Because
I kept
that diet is so much healthier than the beer and pizza and burgers and fries and Coke that they were eating on a regular basis. I get it, and I agree with that, and I have no problem with that.
Well, and it's also like a modified fast or something. It's like you're requiring less digestion, and it's maybe giving your body a freed up energy for, fighting disease or repairing tissues.
Think of that, but the animal-based diet actually has been shown that it has less residue than plant-based material.
Yeah.
Because all of that is digested in the small intestine for the most part. By the time it gets to the colon, you don't have all this residue. Now, and bloating and all that irritation to the gut lining, that's gone, and none of the mucus that you might have. But it's another interesting thing is, one of the complaints about a carnivore diet is, well, you're not eating any plants, so you don't have any fiber. How can you feed? How can you have normal bowel movements, and how can you feed the healthy gut bacteria? Well, it's just that we didn't know what we don't know until now. And it turns out that the motility of the gut, meaning the fact that the gut moves and it makes you go to the bathroom on a regular basis, is not necessarily critical because of the fiber. It's certain cells in the lining of the gut that are stimulated to create this movement or wave pattern called peristalsis. The other thing is that the gut bacteria are very adaptive, and they will ferment amino acids to create short-chain fatty acids, which is a biological chemical that they need to make from these amino acids instead of fiber if the fiber is not there. Interestingly, fiber is not critical. And sometimes these high fiber, especially some of these very abrasive fibers, irritate the gut lining and cause swelling in the colon rather than benefit to the colon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
thanks for sharing that. It's definitely such an interesting perspective for everyone to be introduced to here. And we definitely went over, I think it's worth it. Anyone who's listening to your story would be like, please ask him this, please ask him this. And I know you have lots of other incredible interviews out there. So anyone interested in hearing more how carnivore played a role in this?
Well, first of all, I have never gotten emotional in an interview, and I apologize for that. That is not my personality. But it's fun to share, and if anything else, I need to let any viewer of yours know that you may, or a person that you know may have a life-threatening diagnosis. And what I recommend is, it's a very scary situation. It's because you never know it's coming until it happens. And I don't recommend that you only listen to that one doctor, even though if you have a lot of confidence in them, and believe that it is the gospel. There are other opinions. Before you make the decision, in my opinion now, you need to do a little research, go to a online service called PubMed, PUBMED. It's a government, pubmed.gov. It has some other links to it, but it basically is a resource of all medical journal and abstracts from the entire world for decades and decades, and do a little independent research about what your condition is and what is being done in other places, just to get an idea. Have a conversation, create questions, and ask questions of your healthcare professional, and maybe interview some other alternative or integrative healthcare professionals before you make the decision, because you owe it to yourself. There are ways. You can do conventional oncology, but you may want to do some alternative stuff to support it, and that's what I do. I do more alternative than unconventional, but still, you need to do that. There's always there's a better way, and quality of life is critical, in my opinion. So think about that before you jump into something that's going to decrease your quality of life.
Absolutely. What an inspiration you are. I'm really, really, I've told you many times, just blown away by you. And you've probably lived like 5 lives already, and you're living your next one now. So just soak it all in.
Feels good.
Okay. Well, we will wrap up here because we actually have more to talk about soon.
You're
right.
Sweet.
Bye.
Thanks.
Well, what did I tell you? It's just like mind blown left and right? Well, Dr. Al was generous enough to share with us his free training video for the Better Belly Blueprint, which includes a downloadable PDF. And this is at training.drdanenberg.com. He shares in that his unconventional cancer protocols and why it's so critical to take care of your gut and your mouth health. Yes, we're talking about that in an upcoming interview with him. And also his healthy eating protocol to strengthen your immune system and repair your gut. So be sure to grab that and share this episode if you found it to be astonishing. Bye.